The wind howled across the frozen mountains of Tovari 6. Snow slammed against sharp rocks, cold like knives. No human was supposed to be here this time of year. But Jack was not like most humans. He walked carefully through the snow, each step deep, heavy, and slow. He checked his scanner again. A weak heat signal blinked on the screen, faint, fading, and almost gone. His heart beat faster. That could only mean one thing: life or someone dying. He followed the signal toward a narrow crack in the mountain wall. It looked like a cave, or maybe a shelter once used long ago. Jack raised his rifle, just in case. He stepped inside. Darkness swallowed him at first. Then his visor adjusted. He saw two shapes in the corner, huddled together, covered in frost. One was bigger, the other very small. A mother and a child. They weren't human. Purple skin, soft glowing lines across their bodies. The woman opened her eyes slowly, her lips trembling from the cold. She didn't move. She didn't even flinch. Just stared at him, like she had no strength left to fight. Jack dropped his weapon. He raised both hands slowly. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said gently. No answer, just a soft sound. A weak breath from the small child. Jack stepped forward. The child was freezing. Her tiny fingers were blue, her eyes half closed. She was slipping away. Jack's heart clenched. He couldn't leave them here, not in this storm, not like this. He knelt down and wrapped the girl in his thermal cloak. The mother gasped weakly. Her voice cracked. "Don't take her." Jack looked at her. "I'm trying to save her," he replied. The woman's eyes softened. She nodded very slowly, then passed out. Jack lifted the child carefully into his arms. He then grabbed the woman around her shoulders. Together, they were heavy, but he had to move, fast. The storm outside was growing louder. Jack took one last look at the cave, then began the long walk back to his shelter pod. Every step was harder than the last, but he didn't stop. He couldn't. The child needed heat. Now his shelter was half a mile away, hidden between two cliffs. He finally reached it, kicked the door open. The heat inside rushed to meet him. He laid the child on the warmed floor mat, wrapped her in heat blankets, then placed a small gel pack on her chest. Her body was shaking, but she was breathing. Jack then dragged the mother inside. She was still unconscious. He checked her vitals. Slow, but alive. He placed her near the heater, turned on the emergency lights, then sat down beside them. His breath was shaky. His muscles hurt. But he had done it. He had saved them. At least for now. Hours passed. The storm outside didn't stop, but inside it was quiet. The little girl's eyes blinked open. She saw Jack and flinched. He didn't move. He just smiled and offered her a small cube of food. She took it slowly, chewed weakly, then looked toward her mother. Jack nodded. "She's safe," he said softly. The girl nodded back, her lips too dry to speak, but her eyes, they held something, a tiny spark of trust. The mother stirred, her head turned slowly, eyes finding Jack again. "Why? Help?" she asked. Jack looked down, then said simply, "Because I was the only one who could." And with those words, the frost between them began to melt, not just from heat, but from something warmer, human kindness. The storm outside howled like a beast in pain, but inside the small pod, it was warm and calm. Jack poured water into a small metal cup. He held it near the child's lips. She sipped slowly, her hands still shaking. The mother, Alira, sat nearby, leaning against the wall. Her eyes stayed on Jack, worried, watchful, but not afraid anymore. Jack moved carefully. He didn't want to scare them. He placed a heat pack near Alira's side. "Your ribs might be bruised," he said softly. Alira nodded once. "I'll live," she whispered. Her voice was rough but not unkind. The child looked up at Jack again. She reached out and touched the corner of his jacket. Jack smiled. "What's your name?" he asked gently. The girl didn't answer, just stared with big purple eyes. "She doesn't speak much anymore," Alira said slowly. Jack looked at her. "She used to," Alira added. "Before everything." Silence filled the room for a moment. Jack didn't ask more. He just sat down on the floor, not too close, not too far. Alira watched him with tired eyes. "You're not like the others," she said after a while. "What others?" Jack asked. "Humans," she replied. Jack raised an eyebrow. "There were bad ones?" Alira looked down. "There were only bad ones," she said. "Until now." Jack didn't argue. He knew some humans were monsters too. He reached into his pack, pulled out a small glowing cube. He pressed it. It floated into the air, spinning slowly. The little girl gasped softly, her eyes wide. The cube changed colors, red, blue, gold, green. It sang a gentle tune. Jack smiled. "I brought it for emergencies," he said. "But maybe it can make her smile." The girl reached for it with wonder, her tiny fingers brushing the soft light. Then, a tiny sound, a laugh, barely a whisper, but real. Alira froze. Her eyes filled with tears. "She hasn't laughed in weeks," she whispered. Jack didn't speak, he just watched. That filled the room, not from the heater, but from something deeper. Trust. The girl hugged the cube close, like a soft toy. Jack stood slowly. "I'll cook something," he said. "Do you eat what we eat?" Alira nodded. "We adapt." Jack prepared a small soup packet. Warm steam rose in the air. He handed 2 bowls, one to Alira, one to the girl. She looked at her mother first, then took it with both hands. She sipped quietly. Jack watched them eat. Alira's eyes softened. "Why are you here?" she asked. "Exploration," Jack answered. "Checking for old wrecks, lost tech, rare metals." He looked down. Didn't expect to find people. Alira looked at her daughter. Neither did we. Jack looked at them both. "So what now?" he asked. Alira's expression changed, darkened. "They'll come," she said. Jack leaned forward. "Who?" "Slavers," she replied. "They chased us for days, tracked us through the mountains. They want her." Jack's jaw tightened. "Why?" "She's special," Alira said. "They think her mind can be used for weapon systems." Jack stared in disbelief. "She's just a child." Alira nodded. "That's never stopped them." Silence returned. Only the hum of the heater filled the pod. Jack stood, walked to the small control panel. He activated exterior sensors. No sign of movement yet, but that could change. Fast. He turned back to Alira. "You're safe now," he said. Alira met his gaze. "No one's ever said that to me and meant it." Jack stepped closer. "I mean it." The girl looked up at him again, her eyes full of silent questions, but her hand slowly reached toward his. Jack let her hold his finger. Her hand was still cold, but the fear was melting, bit by bit. Outside, the storm began to fade, but Jack knew. The real danger hadn't even started yet. The night passed slowly. Jack didn't sleep much. He kept checking the sensors. Every few minutes, the child finally slept beside the heater. Alira didn't. She sat upright against the wall, eyes half open, always watching. Jack noticed. "You can rest now," he said softly. Alira shook her head. No mother rests when her child is hunted. Jack didn't argue. He understood that pain. He'd seen it on Earth, in wars, in refugee zones. He just nodded and sat beside her, not too close, just close enough. "You don't trust me," he said gently. Alira looked at him. "No," she replied, "but I'm grateful." Jack smiled a little. "That's a start." Alira's eyes stayed hard. "You don't know what we've seen." "I don't," Jack admitted, "but I know what I'm seeing now." He pointed to the sleeping child. "She's alive because you kept going. And now, because we found each other." Alira's expression softened. "Just a little. I never thought a human would be our only hope." Jack looked down. "I'm not your only hope," he said, "but I'm here." Alira didn't reply, but she didn't look away either. That was something. Morning light pushed through the small window. The storm had calmed. Jack opened the outer hatch. Snow had stopped falling, but thick layers still covered the land. He stepped outside. His boots crunched in the snow. The wind was cold but calm. He scanned the skies. No ships, no drones. Yet, he went back inside. Alira was awake, already feeding the girl small sips of warm soup. The girl looked better, color returning to her cheeks, but she didn't speak, not even a word. Jack crouched beside her. "She's strong," he said. Alira nodded. "She takes after her father." Jack didn't ask more. He sensed the pain in her voice. Instead, he reached into his bag, pulled out a small data pad. He showed the girl a drawing app. She looked at it, curious, touched the screen with one finger. A blue line appeared. Her eyes lit up. She touched again. Red, green, yellow. Jack smiled. Alira watched closely. "What are you doing?" she asked. Jack looked up, giving her a way to speak. "She can draw what she feels." Alira didn't respond, but something in her face changed. Her shoulders lowered a bit, less stiff, less afraid. The girl began to draw slowly. A small figure, another figure beside it, and a bright yellow ball above. Jack smiled. "That's the sun, right?" The girl nodded very slightly. Alira's breath caught. She reached for her daughter's hand. Jack stood and gave them space. He went to check the scanner again, then froze. A red blip flashed on the screen, a signal. Not his, not friendly. He stared at it. The ship was still far, but heading their way, fast. He turned around. "We have to go," he said. Alira stood quickly. "Who is it?" "Probably the slavers." "How long?" "Less than 2 hours." Alira grabbed her daughter, wrapped her in the cloak. Jack packed food, supplies, batteries. He looked at Alira. There's a ridge beyond the cliffs. My old scout ship is hidden there. Alira narrowed her eyes. Why are you doing this? Jack paused. Because no one did it for my family. Alira didn't ask more. They both knew time was short. Jack handed her a snow mask. Alira put it on. He lifted the child onto his back, wrapped tightly. Her little arms held his shoulders. She was light, too light, malnourished but still alive. They stepped outside. The cold wind hit their faces, but this time, they didn't face it alone. They moved quickly across the snow, each step forward, a step away from death, and towards something unknown, but maybe, toward hope too. Snow crunched under Jack's boots. The wind had returned, cold and sharp, but this time it didn't matter. He had a mission now, not just survival, but protection. The little alien girl rested against his back, wrapped tight, head tucked near his shoulder. Alira walked beside him, her steps fast, careful, strong. She kept looking back, as if the past was still chasing them, and maybe it was. The scanner beeped again. The red dot was closer now, 1 hour, maybe less. Jack didn't say it out loud, but Alira knew. She could see it in his eyes. They moved faster, snow rising to their knees in some places. But Jack didn't stop. He knew where to go. He had hidden the old scout ship there months ago, too broken to fly far, but maybe enough to escape this region. Alira slipped once. Jack grabbed her arm, held tight, pulled her up. You okay? She nodded, breathing hard. Keep moving. They reached the edge of the cliff ridge. Below was a narrow trail leading to a cave. Jack pointed. There. They slid down together, careful but quick. Snow fell behind them, but they made it. Inside the cave, the air was still, dark and silent, until Jack tapped the wall. A hidden panel blinked. The ship's door opened slowly, metal groaning, systems humming. Inside, it was cold, dusty, but still alive. He placed the child on a padded bench. She opened her eyes, looked around, not scared, just curious. Alira checked her forehead, still warm, still breathing. Jack turned on the internal heaters. The vents blew out warm air. The girl leaned into it, closed her eyes again. Jack handed her the drawing pad from before. She smiled, just a little, but it was real. Alira gasped. Tears filled her eyes. She smiled. Jack nodded. She's feeling safe now. Alira turned to him. You've done more in 2 days than anyone has in years. Jack shrugged. She's a child. She deserves safety. Alira looked down. My people don't believe in kindness from outsiders. Jack looked at her. Maybe they never met the right outsiders. Suddenly, the scanner beeped again, louder, faster. Jack rushed to the console. The red dot was almost on top of them. A ship was landing nearby. They're here, he said. Alira froze. Her hand reached for her daughter. Jack checked the ship's systems. Engines weak, weapons dead, shields offline. He cursed under his breath. We can't fight them. Alira stepped forward. Then what? Jack looked around. His eyes stopped on the emergency decoy pod. I have a plan. He picked up 2 heat packs and dropped them in the decoy, then placed the child's old blanket inside. He set it to launch far to the east, a fake trail. He pressed the button. The pod shot out into the snow, silent and fast. Alira watched through the small window. Will it work? Jack nodded. It'll give us time. He grabbed his rifle anyway, just in case. Minutes passed, tense, quiet, heavy. Then a loud rumble outside. A drone flew past the cave mouth. It hovered, scanned, and turned, then followed the decoy. Jack smiled. It worked. Alira sighed in relief, then sat beside her daughter. Jack sat across from them, watching, guarding, thinking. The little girl pointed at the drawing pad. She tapped a shape she had drawn. 3 figures, one tall, one medium, one small, standing together under a glowing sun. Alira stared at the drawing, then at Jack. Her voice cracked. She sees you as family. Jack looked down. I didn't do much. You did enough, she said. Outside, the wind howled again, but inside, for now, they had peace, and maybe something more, a beginning. The cave fell quiet again. Only the soft hum of the ship's heater filled the air. Alira leaned back against the wall. Her daughter rested beside her, drawing slowly. Jack sat near the front hatch, his rifle across his lap. His eyes never stopped moving. He was listening, waiting, hoping the decoy had bought them enough time. The scanner showed no new signals, but something felt wrong. Too quiet. Jack stood and checked the console again. The red dot was gone, but the radar flickered. Something was jamming the signal. That wasn't good. He looked at Alira. They might be closer than we think. She stood instantly, eyes alert. Her daughter clutched her hand. Jack grabbed his backpack, pulled out extra thermal blankets, weapons, food capsules. Get ready to move, he said. Alira nodded. They didn't argue. There was no time. Jack opened a panel on the floor of the ship. A hidden tunnel ran beneath, made long ago for smuggling. It led into the lower caves. If they find the ship, Jack said, we go down. Alira peeked through the side window, then froze. Jack, she whispered. He ran to her side. Outside in the snow, a shadow moved, then another. Figures in dark suits, helmets shining red, slavers armed and scanning. They're here, Jack said quietly. Alira's daughter trembled. She pulled the drawing pad to her chest. Jack moved fast. He dimmed the ship's lights, powered down the main reactor, then turned to Alira. Take her, he said. Go into the tunnel. Stay quiet. What about you? Alira asked. I'll lead them away. No, she whispered sharply. They'll kill you. Jack smiled slightly. Not if I run fast. Alira stared at him, something heavy in her eyes. Then she nodded, held her daughter tight, and disappeared into the tunnel. Jack took a deep breath. He grabbed a flare and cracked it open. Bright red lights spilled out. He threw it far into the snow, then ran after. It shouting loud. Hey, over here! The slavers turned fast, their weapons raised. But Jack was already moving, fast across the ice. Shots fired, snow exploded around him. But he didn't stop. He zigzagged through the rocks, diving behind boulders. He could hear them chasing, their boots stomping the ground. But Jack was trained for this. He led them away from the cave, away from Alira and her child, farther and farther, until he reached a narrow pass. He stopped, pulled out a small remote, pressed the button. Behind him, the rocks exploded. The path collapsed, blocking the slaver's way. He smiled. Not today, he whispered, then turned back. Breathing hard, he limped. His leg had been grazed. Blood soaked his pants, but he was alive. He made his way back to the cave. Quietly, carefully, he entered through the lower tunnel. Alira was waiting at the end, her eyes wide with relief. You're hurt, she said. I've had worse, Jack replied. The little girl ran to him. She hugged his leg tightly. Jack winced but smiled. Missed me? She nodded slowly. Alira helped him sit. She ripped cloth from her own sleeve and wrapped his wound. Jack looked at her. You didn't have to do that. Alira looked back. You didn't have to save us. The girl sat beside him. She picked up her pad, drew something new. It was Jack, standing between two dark figures, shielding her and her mother. Alira saw the drawing and whispered, She sees you as her protector. Jack blinked slowly, then nodded. I'll keep protecting her, he said, for as long as I breathe. Outside, the wind howled again. But inside the cave, a bond had formed stronger than fear, stronger than blood, the bond of a promise, a human promise. The fire inside the cave had gone out, but the warmth between them had not. Jack's leg was bandaged tightly. He leaned against the ship wall, breathing slow. Alira sat nearby, quiet but alert. Her daughter was asleep, head resting in Alira's lap. Snow still drifted outside the cave, but the sky had cleared a little. It was time to move again. Jack checked the old scout ship's power system. The reactor hummed weakly. The engine showed signs of life, not perfect but maybe enough. He turned to Alira. We can fly, he said, not far, but far enough. Alira looked down at her daughter, then nodded slowly. I trust you, she whispered. Jack gave a small smile. Then let's get out of this icebox. They packed quickly. Rations, water packs, heat cells. Jack loaded the ship's nav system. He selected a route toward the neutral zone, far from slavers, far from war. The engine groaned as it started. Lights flickered. The controls blinked red, but the ship lifted off the ground. Snow blew away in a wide circle. The mountain grew smaller behind them. Alira sat in the co-pilot seat, her daughter held tightly in her arms. Jack focused on the controls. His hands moved fast but steady. 2 hours to the safe zone, he said. Alira nodded. Let's hope the ship agrees. The ship jolted. Jack grabbed the handles tight. Engines struggling, he muttered. Alira looked at him. Will we make it? Jack didn't answer. He just pushed forward. Outside, the frozen clouds turned to clear skies, but something flashed on the radar. Jack's eyes narrowed. A ship behind them. Small, fast, not marked. Slaver scout, he said sharply. Alira's face turned pale. They followed us? Jack turned the ship slightly, trying to lose them in a cloud stream. The girl held her mother tightly, her eyes wide with fear. Jack turned on the ship's jammer. The radar beeped. Weak interference activated. They'll lose our signal in 10 seconds, he said. The enemy ship closed in. Jack tilted the craft sharply. The ship shook. Alira held on to the seat. Her daughter buried her face in her chest. Then, silence on the radar. The enemy ship turned the wrong way. They lost us, Jack whispered. He sighed with relief, but the ship started to rattle again. Warning lights blinked. "Engine overheating," he said. Alira looked at him. "Can we land?" Jack checked the maps. Near a safe spot, Valen Rock. A flat surface with old mining shelter. 5 minutes away. The engine groaned louder. Jack lowered altitude fast. Snow rose again as the ship descended. With a hard thud, they landed. Smoke rose from the back vents. Jack jumped out first, checked the engine. Burnt wires, overheated coil. He sighed. "We need to cool this ship." Alira helped her daughter step outside. The child looked around. Endless white hills, silent, cold, empty. But she didn't cry. She just looked at Jack, then held his hand. Jack felt a sudden warmth in his chest. She trusted him now. Fully, he led them to the old mining shelter nearby. It was rusted, half buried in snow, but still standing. Inside was a broken heater, some tools, and old data cores. Jack started working fast. He needed coolant for the ship. Alira helped him search. Together they found 2 frozen tubes. Jack smiled. "Enough for one more jump." They returned to the ship. Jack injected the coolant. The system beeped green. Engine reset successful. Alira touched his arm. "Thank you," she said softly. Jack turned to her. "We're not safe yet, but we're closer." Her eyes met his. This time, no fear, only something gentle, something new. They stood in silence. The little girl ran up and hugged them both. Jack froze, then slowly placed his hand on her back. Maybe, just maybe, he was part of something now, something worth protecting, not just survival, but Fami's. And Jack wasn't going to let anyone take that away. The ship was ready again. The engine hummed quietly. The coolant had worked, but the air still felt tense. Jack checked the sky. No enemy ship in sight, but he knew they weren't far. Alira stood beside him. Her eyes scanned the horizon. Her daughter sat inside the shelter, drawing again. Quiet, peaceful, unaware of the danger. Jack looked at Alira. "We fly now." Alira nodded. No more hiding. They moved quickly, loaded supplies back into the ship, strapped everything down. Jack lifted the girl into her seat. She smiled at him and held up her drawing. It showed a ship flying toward a golden sun. 3 small figures inside. Jack smiled back, then turned to the controls. The ship lifted slowly. Snow blew out in all directions, higher, higher, above the cliffs, above the clouds. But then, the scanner beeped, fast and loud. Jack's heart dropped. Enemy ship, right behind them, closing in fast, too fast. Alira looked at the screen, her voice low. "They found us." Jack pushed the thrusters. The ship sped forward, but the slaver ship was faster, sleek, armed, and angry. A voice came over the radio, "Hand over the asset, or be destroyed." Jack turned off the radio. "I hate threats," he said. Alira placed her hand on his arm. "If we don't make it, we will," Jack cut in. "I promised your daughter, and I keep my promises." The enemy ship fired. A red beam flew past them. Jack rolled the ship left. The sky spun. The girl screamed. Alira held her tight. Another shot missed them by inches. Jack checked weapons. Only 1 plasma burst left. He aimed carefully, waited for the right moment. The enemy moved closer. Jack fired. A blue flash lit the sky. The beam hit the enemy's wing. Sparks exploded. The slaver ship wobbled, but didn't stop. They fired again. This time it hit. Jack's ship shook violently. Warning lights blinked red. "Engine hit," Jack shouted. They were falling fast. Jack pulled the controls hard. The ship leveled but was losing power. Below them, a frozen lake appeared. Jack aimed for it. "This will be rough," he warned. They crashed into the ice. The ship slid, cracked, and finally stopped. Smoke filled the cockpit, but they were alive. Alira coughed, held her daughter close. Jack pushed open the door. Cold air rushed in. They jumped out. The enemy ship was circling above, preparing to land. Jack looked around. They needed cover. Now he saw a cave on the edge of the lake. "Run!" he shouted. They sprinted. Ice cracked under their feet. The girl stumbled. Jack picked her up, kept going. Behind them, the enemy ship landed. Footsteps followed. Shouts echoed. Alira reached the cave first. Jack slid in behind her. Bullets hit the ice nearby. They ran deeper into the cave. Dark, narrow, wet. Jack set the girl down behind a rock. He turned to face the entrance, rifle ready. The first slaver stepped in, tall, masked, armed. Jack didn't hesitate. He fired. The shot hit the target. The slaver dropped. Another followed. Alira grabbed a rock. She swung it hard, hit the second attacker in the face. He fell back. Jack and Alira fought side by side, silent, focused, fast. They protected the child and each other. After minutes that felt like hours, the cave fell silent. No more footsteps, no more shots, just the sound of their breathing. Jack lowered his rifle. Alira dropped the rock. They turned to the girl. She was safe. She was smiling, a small, tired smile, but real. Jack dropped to his knees, exhausted. Alira knelt beside him. "You saved her," she whispered. Jack looked at her. "We saved her." Their hands touched, cold fingers but warm hearts. Outside, the wind howled again, but inside the cave, there was fire, not made of flames but of courage and something deeper, love without words. The cave was quiet. The girl sat between Jack and Alira. Her hands still clutched the drawing pad. She had drawn a new picture, 3 hearts, all connected by one line. Jack smiled softly. He touched the top of her head. "You okay, kiddo?" She nodded, eyes tired but full of trust. Alira leaned back against the stone wall, her arm around her daughter, her other hand holding Jack's. "I never thought we'd survive this long," she whispered. Jack gave a tired laugh. "I didn't think I'd care this much." Alira looked at him, not with fear, not with doubt, but something else, something quiet and deep. Outside, the wind calmed. The sky was blue again. Jack stood. He looked out the cave entrance. The enemy ship was still there, empty now. The slavers were gone. Some escaped, some didn't. But they wouldn't return soon. He walked back to the others. "It's over," he said. "For now." Alira nodded. "But we can't stay here," Jack agreed. "The ship may still work." They left the cave together. Snow crunched under their feet. The girl held both their hands now. The sun shone above, weak but warm. They reached Jack's old scout ship. It was damaged, one side dented but still standing. Jack climbed in and checked the console. Sparks flew, but the screen lit up. He smiled. "She's got one flight left in her." Alira helped her daughter into the co-pilot seat. Jack sat in the pilot chair. The engine whined, coughed, then started. Dust and snow blew away as they lifted off, higher and higher, into the sky. Alira looked down. The white wasteland faded below them. She took a deep breath, then looked at Jack. "Where are we going?" Jack didn't hesitate. "To the neutral zone. A place where slavers don't reach. A place where you two can be safe." Alira smiled, soft and sad. "Will you stay?" Jack looked at her. "Do you want me to?" Her eyes answered before her lips did. "Yes," the girl giggled. She leaned her head on Jack's shoulder. Jack blinked slowly. He had fought. He had bled. He had risked everything. But this moment, it made everything worth it. The ship flew steady. Clouds passed by like dreams. The radar showed no enemies, no threats, just clear air, just peace. Alira closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them again. Her voice was soft. "When I lost my mate, I thought everything was over. When we ran into the mountains, I had no hope. But then you came." Jack didn't speak. He just reached out and took her hand. No words were needed. They flew in silence for a while. The girl drew again, this time a small house, and above it, stars. Jack looked at it and smiled. "Looks like home," he said. Alira whispered. "Maybe it can be." An alert beeped. They had reached the edge of the neutral zone. A beacon lit up on the map. Safe skies. Jack activated the comms. "This is Scout 19, he said, "requesting clearance to land with refugees." A voice replied, "Welcome, Scout 19. Landing pad B is clear." Jack looked at Alira. She looked at her daughter. The girl was smiling. They had made it. They were safe. As the ship landed slowly, Jack felt something shift in his heart. He had found more than just survivors. He had found something to live for. The ship touched down gently. The doors opened. Warm air rushed in. People waited to help, but the girl didn't move. She hugged Jack first, tight and long, then whispered, "Thank you, Papa." Jack froze. His eyes watered. Alira smiled with tears in her eyes. She touched his cheek. "You're part of us now." Jack smiled back, and for the first time in years, he felt whole. He had saved a life, but in truth, they had saved his. The sun was shining over the neutral zone. The snow was far behind them now, and the danger had faded like a bad dream. Jack walked slowly through the refugee station. Alira walked beside him. Her daughter held both their hands. People watched them as they passed. Some smiled, some whispered, but no one stopped them. This place was safe. No slavers, no hunters, no war, just life and peace. Jack had never stayed in one place for long, but something in his heart had changed. Alira had changed it. The girl had changed it. They reached a small shelter near the hill, a place the station had given them. It had one room, 2 beds, a heater, and a small window that showed the stars at night. Jack stepped inside. It wasn't much, but it felt more like home than any place he'd known. The girl ran in first. She placed her drawings on the wall. Each picture told their story. A cold cave, a warm hand, a ship flying through clouds, 3 hearts drawn close together. Jack smiled. He placed his rifle in the corner. For the first time in a long time, He didn't need to hold it. Alira cooked a simple meal. Steam rose from the bowl. The smell was soft and sweet. Jack sat down. The girl climbed into his lap. He held her gently, carefully, like she was made of light. After dinner, they sat near the heater. No words, just the sound of breathing and the quiet hum of safety. Alira looked at Jack. Her voice was soft. "You could leave if you wanted." Jack shook his head. "I don't want to." She nodded. "Then stay." He smiled. "I already have." The girl crawled between them. She looked up, her eyes shining like stars. "Is this our home now?" she asked. Jack looked at Alira, then back at the girl. "Yes," he said, "it is." The days passed gently. Jack fixed old machines for the station. Alira worked in the greenhouse, her hands growing life again. The girl went to school. She made friends. She laughed. Every night they ate together. Every night Jack told her stories of Earth, of stars, of brave people who never gave up. One night, as the wind blew outside, the girl climbed into Jack's lap again. She handed him a new drawing. It was simple, but powerful. 3 figures standing in front of a small house. Above it, she had written one word: family. Jack's hands shook slightly. He looked at her, tears in his eyes. "You're my family too," he said. Alira leaned on his shoulder. The fire glowed beside them. Outside, the stars watched quietly, and deep in his heart, Jack knew something true. He had come to a frozen planet looking for lost tech. He had found something better. He had found a reason to stay, a reason to fight, a reason to live. One night, the girl asked, "Do you miss your old life?" Jack thought for a long time, then shook his head. "No," he said, "because this is the life I never knew I needed." She smiled. Alira smiled too, and Jack knew. He would never be alone again, not in this life, not in the next. And in that small shelter, with stars above and warmth all around, a human man, an alien woman, and a little girl became something stronger than blood. They became a family, forged not by fate, but by choice, by trust, and by love. Days turned into weeks. Jack had found peace. Alira smiled more now. Her daughter laughed every morning. The small home glowed with warmth, but peace never lasted forever. One morning, the radio crackled. Jack picked it up. A voice came through, nervous. "This is Patrol 6 requesting help," Jack answered. "What happened?" "A wrecked ship," the voice replied, "near the old glacier fields. No life signs detected, but something's odd." Jack paused. The glacier fields were close, too close. He looked at Alira. She had heard it too. Her face turned pale. "We should check," she said quietly. Jack nodded. He grabbed his coat, loaded the small rover. Alira stayed back with the girl. Jack drove alone through the snowy trails. The wind was sharp, the sky was gray, but his heart beat strong. He reached the patrol site. A ship was buried in the ice, old, broken, burned, slaver markings on the side. Jack's jaw tightened. He stepped out carefully. The patrol guard stood nearby. "We didn't touch it yet," one said. Jack nodded. He walked up to the wreck, then he saw it. A pod, still sealed, still powered. Inside was a child. Not human, not like Alira's daughter either. This one was blue-skinned, eyes closed, but alive, frozen in stasis. Jack blinked. His hands touched the glass. A tag was stuck to the side. Specimen B47. Jack's heart dropped. Another one. Another innocent trapped, just like before. He turned to the patrol. "We're taking her back." They loaded the pod onto the rover. Jack drove fast. Snow kicked up behind the wheels. He reached the shelter by nightfall. Alira stood at the door, worried. Jack opened the back. Her eyes widened. The girl peeked out too. She gasped. Jack explained what he found. Alira placed her hand on the pod. "She's just a baby," she whispered. Jack nodded. "We can save her." He powered up the pod. He activated the warming cycle. Slowly, the chill. Inside began to move, eyes fluttering, fingers twitching. After an hour, she opened her eyes. Bright silver. She looked around, then began to cry. Soft, scared, weak. Alira picked her up, rocked her gently. Her daughter stood nearby, watching with wonder. "She's like me," she said. Jack placed a blanket around the little one. "She's one of you. But now she's one of us too." The baby stopped crying. She looked at Jack, then at the girl. She reached out. Tiny fingers touched the drawing pad. The girl smiled. "I'll teach her," she said. Alira looked at Jack, tears in her eyes. She was meant for cages. But now she has a home. Jack sat down slowly. The fire crackled behind them. He looked around the room. One alien child in his lap, another asleep by the fire. Alira sitting close, her eyes soft. This wasn't the life he expected, but it was the life he chose. Later that night, as stars shined above, Alira whispered, "You keep finding lost ones." Jack smiled. "Maybe that's my job now." She touched his hand. "Then we'll find them together." He nodded. Together. Outside, snow fell gently, but inside their home, the warmth only grew stronger, deeper, and so did the family, one heart at a time.